Good morning, PT on Ice. Welcome to Monday, the MLK Day episode. Monday, January 21st. My name is Mike Eisenhart. I am the lead faculty with the APHPT division and the APHPT intro course and the CERT course. And also, involved in lots of different things and sort of all over the map. But today is a day that I feel like I'm back in action. Thankfully, Alan took the reins for me last week. I was doing some traveling, and he was kind enough to jump in and do a really awesome episode on alcohol and alcohol consumption. If you haven't caught that, I would strongly suggest you watch it. I was lucky enough to see the full length version on the APHPT platform that he did maybe a year ago or several months ago. Is really, really enlightening, and I know for me has made me think, has kept me sort of on track. But so I thank him for doing that. But I'm back. It's the 21st of January. It is bitterly cold here in New Jersey. It's like single digits today, only getting up into the teens, which is pretty cold for us. That's not something we're used to much. So we'll get started. I wanted to talk a little bit today about the urgency of now. And it's a piece of a speech that Martin Luther King Jr. did, and I was lucky enough this year to have heard it the first time. I was not familiar with that quote, but it really struck me. And the context of it is that I was working on a paper with some colleagues who are just awesome. And to be fair, I sort of don't know how I got pulled into the mix. These are really, really super bright people who asked me to be involved in writing this paper. And I was kind of involved in sitting down there, and we were having a really good discussion just together. And someone brought up this quote and said, hey, I really feel like this fits. And it was the first time I heard it, and it floored me. I mean, it was like one of those things where it just knocked me out of my chair. I didn't know whether to smile or cry or you have goosebumps and have an emotional reaction. I mean, just really, really powerful stuff. So I'm going to start today by reading that quote because I feel like it resonates so deeply. It hits home, and anybody who is in the space of health and justice and freedom and trying to help people to live the full version of themselves, I think is very much is connected to a quote like this. So I'm going to read it. Again, this was taken from August 1963 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and when Martin Luther King Jr. was addressing a crowd of somewhere around 250,000 people is what the estimates say. So, quote, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." I loved it. Man, I love that quote. It's like that quote is so like spot on today with everything that we face, with everything that we're up against. Now I'm not sure. I went back this morning and listened to the speech on the steps, and I don't think that full quote was in there. I'm not sure where the full quote came from, but the quote, "the urgency of now," showed up there, and I know it showed up in multiple places. That couldn't be more perfect than here we are today, right? So fast forward, 50 plus years, and here we are today, with a chance to reflect and celebrate an unbelievable and inspiring leader who kind of fought for critical aspects regardless of your ethnicity, race, regardless of kind of where that falls for you. I think that the messages are spot on and clear, and I'll get to where I think where it takes us, and for those of us in kind of the pop health and people who are trying to be oriented that way. First, when I sort of think of this person and hear this leader, who is an unbelievable orator, right? I mean, like a poet, but also probably one of the most motivational people ever. You obviously hear tones of liberation and justice, freeing people of a burden that is unfair, unjust, and needs to be done. And it can't be gradualism, right? So there's a quote in there somewhere that was, I don't remember it off the top of my head like exactly how it went, but it was basically like we can't be lulled into gradualism. We can't accept this idea of little tiny, yeah, we'll get to it, let's put you off and placate you, we'll slowly get there. We have to be understanding that like if we don't do this now, it's not going to happen. To me, like that speaks volumes. I don't know why. I don't know if that's just sort of like, when you know there can be better, when you expect more of yourself, your colleagues, your friends, your family, that you realize that we can do this starting now, that we don't have to take little bites all the time, and that even those little bites can be done now, and we don't have to wait. It doesn't have to be perfect. We have to act. So to me, there's a lot there. Now, obviously today it makes it easy to talk about, and I think that it makes it sort of accessible because given the holiday, but I also think that there's a time when holidays like this get brushed over, that we don't really think about it, that we don't stop and pause and reflect, and I hope that today maybe we'll do that. I know for me yesterday, kind of leading up, I was talking to my son, and I've mentioned him in the past. He's 12, and he's he's just like a typical 12-year-old kid, but he's a thinker as well. He wrestles with some of this stuff, and so we have these kind of intellectual conversations, and then he goes back and thinks about it, and then comes back later. And we talked about it a little bit, and we spent some time just kind of discussing like what does this holiday mean to you? As a kid who will never really experience firsthand the pain and the hatred because you don't wear your differences on the outside nearly as clearly as others. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be different and unique? And what's the difference between those two things? What does it mean to be different? And that sort of sounds bad. It's sort of a negative. But what does it mean to be unique? And that's kind of a positive. And we got into this really nice conversation. And then I sort of brought it back to the idea of like, well, what do you do about it? Like you can think about it all you want. You can talk about it all you want. You can rail about it. You can convene people about it. You can hold conferences. You can, bang gavels. Like you can do all sorts of crazy stuff. But what's the actual doing? And I think that's where the invitation for all of us is today. Like today invites us all, to be included in the conversation. And I think that is it right there. Everyone is involved. Everyone is included, and everyone should be included. And I'm not going to belabor it today. I'm not going to go long. I probably won't even use up the full 15 minutes today because I don't think it needs to be used up. I think we need to hear the words. I think we need to listen and maybe even meditate on those words a little bit and ask ourselves, what exactly can we do today because it's urgent? And that's the broader context of justice, right? Now, it might be civil rights and disparities that you feel like you can act on and you feel like you're well positioned. It might be some other form of justice. But it's striving for justice overall, making it easier, taking barriers down, and giving everyone a reasonable start. Like if we're all starting at the starting line, everyone should have a reasonable shot at victory. And I think that as health professionals, we are not only is it our job, but it's our calling to do so. So last night we were on the intro cohort, the live session. It was a good session, had a nice group on there, and we got into some conversations a little bit about this stuff, about the idea that taking down barriers is kind of fundamental to what this idea of practicing in a health-facing way is. It's fundamental to the concept of, hey, we have to make it easier to live the fullest version of ourselves, the healthiest version of ourselves. That's our job in a nutshell. That's the work that needs to be done. But we didn't dive in so much to, and it can't wait. It can't, you can't push it off till the end of the day. It can't be the thing you want to do but never quite get to because you're too busy paying the bills and keeping the lights on. There is a fierce urgency. It has to be done now. It has to be first. It has to be foremost. It has to be the thing that we each and every one of us do. And when we do that, if we do that, but when we decide it's important enough, then we will make change. We will actually make the world a better place. We can leave, knowing and knowing that we've gotten closer to fulfilling the mission, of helping people live the fullest version of themselves. And so I guess what I want to do is I want to challenge us, in my well, I didn't even start the clock today. In my few minutes left, I want to challenge us to think about what can we do now. What is the context that we're in, and how can we make it easier? How can we add justice to the situation with whomever we work, in wherever we live, in wherever we learn, play, like whatever. I think one of the ways that we can do it is we can make make our door open and available. And so that's what I'm going to do right now, right? Like right this second, I'm going to tell you that like inclusion is one of the major pillars. Right, that we know, like societally, we are suffering the outputs of people who feel isolated and people who feel sort of marginalized for all different reasons. But we know that from a health professional's perspective, one of the easiest, best things we can do is say, hey, my door is open. Like, you have a seat at my table. You can come in and sit down and talk with me, and I'm available to you, and I will make myself available to you. I will take the precious time that I have in my life, and I will make it available. You are included. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we can show action, right? Like we don't have to always talk about it. We can just do it, and then we can easily make it known that this is the norm, and that everyone is invited to do it. So in a few days, some of my colleagues are going to do this. And I'm pledging right now to be out on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. I have no idea what the weather's going to be like in D.C., but I'll be going down to D.C. for APTA's CSM, I'm inspired by what they're trying to do. Right? They're trying to climb 29,000 feet as a group. To get to the top of Mount Everest, and Alan, who I mentioned at the start, is going to be doing the whole thing in one day by himself. He's decided he's going to give it a shot, in one day. So how do we support that? How do we push that message forward? Now they're doing it for a good cause, and they're raising some money for kids who have maybe some needs that some of us don't have. But I think the point of it is that it opens the door to having an inclusive conversation. It opens the door for us to say, yeah, I have to do something. I have to talk about this. I have to create a different narrative. And that really is at the root of everything that we talk about and do when we're thinking about health-facing practice. Whether you're doing it at the population level and you're doing it with lots of people, or whether you're doing it literally today in your clinic. Will you take the time today, regardless of who you interface with, to have that conversation? Will you print out that quote? Will you talk about it? Will you ask people and say, hey, where do you think this fits today? 50 plus years later, or whatever it's been, 60 years later, or like whatever, okay? Where does it fit today? And are we closer now than we were then as a population, as a society? Or are we further away? I think that's the kind of stuff that we all need to do, and we need to do it now. Now, where can that lead? I think it can lead us to a habit of doing. And I think that's really where it comes down to it, is that it doesn't have to be perfect. We'd like it to be good. Certainly, having some context and being deliberate. If you listen to Martin Luther King Jr. speak, this is not a person who just got up and grabbed the mic and riffed, right? Like he didn't go like I'm going today without a script. He clearly spent the time, putting an image together that you could see and feel and touch. It was so like amazingly moving and tangible. That is a true leader, but he was clearly deliberate in doing so. Are we going to do that as well? Are we going to take these conversations and then think about, okay, what exactly can we do? So I'm going to kind of leave it there. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to read the quote one more time because I think that it's the kind of thing I hope will stick with us today, regardless of what our context, our personal background and context is. Regardless of the fact that guys like me will never ever be able to understand exactly what Martin Luther King Jr. was talking about or went through, because we'll never experience it to the fullest. And that is something that I'm sure that we should all be thankful for. But on the other hand, we should realize that people are, and others are. And although we may not wear our differences on the outside, we may wear our differences on the inside, we all have the call. We all are required to take the barriers down, to make it easier, make it fair, and allow sort of equity come through. That is at the heart of health. That is at the heart of population health. And that can start for us today. So I'm going to read the quote, and then I'll leave you alone for today, and let you ruminate a little bit on this idea of the urgency of now. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. If that doesn't fire you up and motivate you, you should check your pulse, because that is the kind of thing that anybody can lock into. And it's the kind of thing that true leaders and visionaries and like beacons of hope sort of call us to do. So it's Monday. It's only Monday. We're back on track. It's Monday. It's going to be a busy week. If you're going to be down in D.C., I invite you. You are included. I will have a seat at whatever table I'm sitting at. I will make a seat for you. If you want to join the conversation, if you want to be on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with me, it's going to be an early start of the day. I haven't decided exactly how early, but it's going to be early because it's going to be a busy day, and that will be Friday morning. But if you want to be there, I will be there. But no matter what, no matter if you get there, no matter if you interface with someone in your clinic today, realize the urgency of now and take a step forward. Take a step in the right direction so that we can begin to take down barriers and make it easier in this country to be healthy and to experience justice. Have a great day. It's only Monday. Make it count.